This video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com and GatheringMagic.com, your place to explore the game.
My name is Jonathan, and this is my Liliana Heretical healer deck. This is my Liliana Heretical healer deck tech, so let's get into it. I built this deck because I wanted to try a different kind of control and utilize her discard ability to control the board state a little differently than just killing creatures and countering stuff. So let's start out with all the lands. I am running a lot of lands. I am running 27 basic swamps. You can definitely run more non-basics than I am, but I do not have Cobalt Coffers or Uroborg or stuff like that. So Mortuary Mire, it is good for creature recursion, especially when you don't have it. Occasionally that'll happen, and it's great to drop this and just get that clutch creature back. Polluted Mire for when you have too many lands and you need to start getting rid of your hand. Bojuka Bog to exile graveyards. Reliquary Tower, you do draw quite a few cards in this deck, and if you don't get a lot of discard happening, you don't want to discard your cards prematurely, so you want to hold on to them. High Market, a sack outlet's always nice. This isn't the best one, but it's good to have at least one in land form. Temple of the False God for fast mana. And Ghost Quarters because some lands suck. And finally, Drownyard Temple, just in case you accidentally get it into your graveyard or need to sack a land. It's always good to sack this one, so you can get it right back. Okay, now into the Planeswalkers of the deck. There are, I guess, technically 3, but only 2 in the 99. Liliana Vess, good for making people discard even more cards. Searching your library is always nice, and if you can get to it, her ultimate is pretty game-winning. Sorin Markov, you don't really need to use his other abilities, you just want to make someone's life total 10. Gibbering Descent, now we're on to the enchantments. This is a nice card because, again, more card discard and a little bit of light floss, and it's always great to have some sort of madness effect, so you can discard it and play it for way cheaper. Animate Dead. This is a good card because you want creatures in the graveyard, and this is a great way to get them back out again for cheap. Phyrexian Arena, because card draw is amazing, and you want to draw lots of cards. Next we have Dictate of Erebos, because you're sacking creatures, so why shouldn't everyone else? Waste Not, taking more advantage of everyone already discarding. This is a great card and pretty cheap too for 2-mana enchantment. Grave Betrayal. You're sacrificing a lot of creatures. That's probably going to make everyone else sacrifice creatures, and you want their creatures, so why not take them? Victimize. This is great for sacrificing like 2/2 zombie and then getting back 2 demons or big creatures, or even just something like Fleshbag Marauder. This is a fun card. Hymn to Tourach, another discard card. You could probably find a better 2-mana card to put in here, but I really like Hymn to Tourach. I think it's really fun too, having them discard at random. That really helps. Murder, pretty simple. Just want to destroy some creatures. Fated Return, the Indestructible's nice, and it's always also nice to scry too. And this is a fun card. Crux of Fate. This is definitely just a plain board, not just a plain board wipe. I really like this card. And it's also a lot of fun if you happen to face up against someone who's playing a lot of dragons and kind of one-side board wipe. It's not all the time, but it still has that option. Diabolic Tutor. I know there are a lot better tutors out there to use, but I just like using some of the lower key ones just because I feel like it paints less of a target. Victim of the Night, more creature removal. Gotta love this card. Rise of the Dark Realms. This card is probably the only card in the deck that you can play and then probably win the game by playing it. I don't think there's another card in the deck that just basically wins you the game. Mutilate, another board wipe. This is good because instead of just destroying everything, it gives -1/-1, so it gets around some indestructible effects. Dismember, also a good card, 5/5/, and probably for 1 colorless, so some more spot removal. Rise from the Grave, getting you any creature, which is fantastic, and also making it a zombie, so that's important for later. From Under the Floorboards, this card can save you. If you get Crypt Ghast out and you have more mana than you can handle, if you +2 your Liliana and then make everyone discard, this is fantastic to discard because not only are you getting tons of zombies, but you're going to gain some life, which is great. Altar's Reap. This is a good card because you're already sacrificing creatures and you want to draw cards. Read the Bones. This card is a lot of fun. Just more precise drawing and stuff. Sign in Blood. More drawing. Wretched Confluence. This has a lot of different modes. It's nice to have a card that does lots of different things for you when you need it to. But lots of times I find myself paying 5 and getting rid of a small utility creature and just drawing 2 cards, which is also real nice and doing that. Night's Whispers, just another 2 mana lose 2 draw 2. So yeah. Army of the Damned, this is a really fun card if you can get it to resolve, or resolve twice even. This might be the other card in the deck that just you play it and you win, because 13 zombies is not impossible to deal with, but if you can get it at the right time, pretty hard to. Ambition's Cost, draw 3, lose 3. Lots of draw cards. You need to draw your answers and removal and bombs. Doomblade, a classic. Love that card. Behold the Beyond. This card seems almost like counterintuitive to discard your hand, but with all the discard effects, a lot of times you are just top decking, or you only have 1 card in hand that you don't really need. So this is great to find basically the main win con in the deck besides like just Rise of the Dark Realms. Smallpox, this is a lot of fun, gets everyone to sack a creature, discard, do all the good stuff you want it to do. Turn 2 Smallpox also is very brutal, but that's a big target on your head now. Tragic Slip, Morbid's going to be online pretty often for this deck, so it's pretty great removal. Living Death. This card is not always the best card, but it is a lot of fun to resolve it and getting a bunch of creatures back, especially after a board wipe and then Bojuka Bogging someone else's graveyard. So it's a lot of fun to have that resolved and gets pretty chaotic. Now we're on to the artifacts. Darksteel Ingot for mana ramp, and it's indestructible, which is nice. Swiftfoot Boots to give a creature haste and some protection. Also good for Liliana to get that 2 life before she flips. You're going to need it with all these draw-lose effects. Whip of Erebos, life linking all your creatures is awesome, especially with all the draw-lose life. And also returning a creature from the graveyard and giving it haste, even though you only get it for a turn sometimes, that's all you need it for. Sol Ring, it's in almost every commander deck because it's amazing. Mind Stone. This card is great because you get it in the if you get it in the early game, it's nice for that extra mana, and once you don't need it anymore or drawing it late game, it draws you another card, so it replaces itself. Thought Vessel, another mana rock, kind of like Mind Stone, but no maximum hand size is always fun. Okay, and our last artifact, Skullclamp, actually ties in with Gravecrawler. Now, Gravecrawler, as you probably know, can be cast from a graveyard if you control a zombie. And it is a 2/1, so as soon as you equip Skullclamp, it dies. And then you get to start an engine of paying basically black and a colorless and getting to draw 2 cards. This can get you very, very far, especially if you have a Crypt Ghast out. That is one of the other ways to win with this deck because, well, if you have something like Zulaport Cutthroat and you make everyone lose a bunch of life and you draw a ton of cards and have lots of answers for everything. Very, very good. Burnished Hart for that mana ramp and the sack to flip Liliana. Crypt Ghast. It is amazing and gets you lots of mana. Bloodthrone Vampire. This is one of the first really, really good sack outlets. You want to be able to sack a creature very relatively fast because you want to flip Liliana and having people start to discard their hands. Carrion Feeder. Another sack outlet. Also helps that it's a zombie, so sacking something like Gravecrawler to it can be a lot of fun, just paying a black to get it back. Diregraf Ghoul, just a 1-mana zombie. Not the best card ever, but I don't know why. I really like it. You could probably find something a lot better to put in its spot, but I like it. I just have a lot of fun with it. Sidisi, Undead Advisor. He is amazing. He is a zombie, which is kind of a theme in this deck. It's a little bit of a zombie tribe. I'm not huge into it. Exploit to Demonic Tutor is incredible. I shouldn't have to explain to you why it is. Grim Harpsick, I can't pronounce this card ever. I don't know why. It's good to draw cards, though, when you sack creatures, which you will be doing a lot. Sadistic Hypnotist, another great sack outlet. On theme with the discard. This might be my favorite one, especially if you can get Gravecrawler out, because then you can make pretty much anyone discard their hands pretty late into the game, which can be game-winning, especially if they have only a few, which they might. Mind Rack Demon, it's nice to have a flyer in the air to block the creatures that are going to be swinging at Liliana. And you, but usually Liliana, because her ultimate is terrifying. That's basically the other win con in the deck. If you can get Liliana's ultimate, and you're probably going to win. Hypnotic Spectre, the wording on this old one is pretty weird, but basically when it hits discard, your opponent has to discard at random. Discarding at random is the best way to have them discard, because sometimes if you hit them and they only have a few cards in hand, they might need the one card to win the game. Maybe you're getting rid of that Cyclonic Rift that's going to save them, which is always great. Viscera, another great sack outlet. Love the Scry. Black Cat, kind of when it dies, it turns into Liliana. Turns into Hypnotic Spectre for a turn. Makes them discard at random, which is also nice. Great creature to sacrifice. Phyrexian Rager, another great way to draw cards. Also especially good late in the game because you can play it, sack it, and then recur it, and then you get to draw lots of cards. Shriek Maw. This is one of the best cards in this deck, maybe. One of the better ones, just because it works so well to evoke it, and then flip Liliana, get your 2/2 zombie, get rid of a pesky creature, and then start making people discard. Liliana Spectre, love this card. This is one of my pet cards. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards, which is fantastic. It's also great to sacrifice it and then bring it back and then have everyone discard again. Rune Servitor. One way to kind of keep the target off your head just a little bit. When you're making everyone discard, at least let them draw a little bit. but doesn't usually help that much. Fleshbag Marauder, great card. It's also a zombie. Fantastic card. Grave Titan, the best beat stick in the deck. You play this guy, you swing, you recur him, you do a bunch of stuff. He is lovely. He will be your best friend. The 2/2 zombies, when he enters and when he attacks, are just amazing. It gets out of control very quickly if no one deals with it. Butcher of Malakir, fantastic card for controlling the board. This and Dictate of Erebos are one of the other ways to control the board. Getting a sacrifice outlet, a zombie, and then a Gravecrawler. Gravecrawler is one of the main cards to tutor for. If you tutor for a card, it's probably going to be Gravecrawler. Just because all the sacrifice interactions, it's so good to sacrifice it and then immediately get it back. It's also great because a lot of times people might have a few pesky creatures and they just keep sacrificing those instead of their big threats, so Gravecrawler gets you a lot of stuff, and that card is one of the ways to enable it. Zulaport Cutthroat. You're sacrificing a lot of creatures, and also board wipes are this guy's best friend. All your creatures die, and people lose a lot of life. I've won games with this card just because your board state might get so out of control, sacrificing 20 creatures and making everyone lose 20 life and then gaining 20 life. Namtuko Husk, a great sack outlet, and also it's a zombie, which works with theme in the deck. That's great. Risen Executioner. He gives all your zombies buffs. He's kind of like the only zombie anthem effect, or he's really the only guy that's gonna help your zombies get bigger, but for the most part, they don't super need it, although they probably kind of do. Harvester of Souls. Whenever a non-token creature dies, you get to draw a card on a 5/5 Death Touch body. This card is fantastic. I love it. Sacrificing Gravecrawler with Skullclamp, drawing 3 cards, or even 4 if you have the Grim Harpsec card I can't pronounce. It's a lot of fun. Gary, Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Your devotion is going to be really high in mono black, especially if you have a few planeswalkers or a few creatures. And getting this guy back, recurring him after sacrificing him, is devastating. And finally, Archdemon of Depravity, which I'm probably not pronouncing right. He has flying, and at each opponent's upkeep or end step, I'm not 100% sure, they have to sacrifice all but 2 creatures, but I'm thinking of replacing this card with Call to Graves. I don't think it's as good, and I think it paints a lesser target on your head, and also it's a lot in flavor for the deck because of all the zombies, and you're probably not going to have to sacrifice as much since you have zombies. So that's always good. And yep, that is the end of this deck. And just a word of warning, when you play this deck, if your graveyard does get exiled, don't be discouraged. It is a setback, but you can still win. It's not a huge thing, so I hope you enjoyed that. That was my Liliana Heretical Healer EDH deck, and just remember to have fun. Thanks for watching CMDR decks. Subscribe and favorite.